Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Hello and welcome to episode 44 of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. The date is November 18th, 2019, and we are going to be talking today about Kelsier's fight versus the Inquisitor. This is our very first episode. We're not just reviewing a book, and we're very excited. I'm Jordan, and I am joined, as always, by my cinematic co-hosts, Amy and Bill.
Hey,
Hello.
how's it going?
And if you think this all sounds backwards, you're not wrong. Bill, do you want to tell people about your situation a little bit?
I'm not going to go into too many details. Just essentially, there's been some bleeding in my eye, so I can't see things clearly. Don't worry about it. It's all going to heal up fine. It's just going to take some time for that to filter out. So Jordan has been so kind as to take the helm of this episode.
That's right. The Jordan takeover has just begun.
Meanwhile, I get to sit in the peanut gallery and start, delivering quips. So,
no, it's been interesting. Everything feels wrong, and we're just going to move along. We're going to deal with this. We will survive.
All the crickets.
All right. Before we get started, just reminding you guys that the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is not spoiler-free. We are going to be spoiling the crap out of things. So if there's something in the Cosmere you haven't read or you're worried about hearing spoilers, you just might want to finish reading those books and then come back to us. We'll be waiting for you.
And trust me, it's worth it.
It's definitely worth it. Today,
and we're worth it.
We're so worth it. We're worth it too. So this is interesting for us because we've been slowly reviewing all the books going through the Cosmere, and we finally reached the end. We got done, and we decided to, not end the podcast just for that.
We didn't get done. We got current.
That's true.
So,
all caught up.
We're just going to be sitting here going through specific topics, and this is one that I pitched really, really hard. Because I am guilty as charged, a Kelsier fanboy, and this moment, Kelsier's fight versus the Inquisitor, is the moment that I became a Sandersonian cultist and is led to this podcast, essentially. So let's
and here we
get ready.
all are.
Yeah, here we all are. And just
a brand Inquisitor. I'm only a little sorry.
I hope you stretched a little bit before that. But so for those who listen to the podcast recordings or watch us via YouTube, just reminding everyone that you can catch us live, twitch.tv/InnkeepersTable. We record live at 7:30 Pacific Time, 10:30 Eastern. And you can take an active part in chat and make sure that Doc FG and Texas Blade aren't alone.
There's Renegade Nick, too.
Oh, hey, sorry, Renegade Nick. I am going to be terrible at paying attention to chat because, again, not used to this.
Not to mention like a gazillion Twitch bots.
Who knows?
So.
Twitch bots, yay.
Commander Root and I can't remember all the other ones.
And
Lurks.
All of the...
Lurks is such a good bot name. I love it. Okay, so we also want to thank our patrons. The Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is made possible, of course, by all our wonderful listeners and patrons. Show's always going to be free, but of course, if you just want to help us out, just go over there, pledge $1 or $2, and it can help us improve the show. Mm-hmm. And on top of it all, it's a great community, and you're going to love it, and you're going to join our Discord, and it's going to be the most wonderful place ever.
It already is the most wonderful place ever. You're just going to make it even better.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. There's no upwards limit. All right. So, shall we begin?
Let's do this.
All right, so first thing I want to talk about before we even get started in the scene, I'm going to be doing a lot of read-throughs, and just anytime we get to those things, be sure if you have something to say, you can interrupt me. That's fine.
Okay.
But I just want to start off with the significance of this scene. The entire history of Scadrial pivots around this scene. The stuff that happens here has effects that go long into Scadrial's history. Brandon was quoted as one time, I remember in his commentary on, I think it was Hero of Ages, where they're still talking about Kelsier and things that he did. Mm-hmm. Brandon talks about how Kelsier casts a long shadow, and this scene is kind of why.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, because like you almost have almost all the iconography of the survivorism religion comes from this scene. Spook, who already had a hero worship of Kelsier, gets saved by him here because he's the one in the procession gonna get executed.
Along with Renault, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going with the comparison to Les Miserables that I've brought up a couple times, this is the barricade scene. For those of you who don't know the Les Miserables, move on. But for those of you who do, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Sorry, Bill. We just haven't. I haven't. Yeah. I've heard some of the songs, but I still haven't watched or read it.
It's worth it. You should.
I just need
watch
to do it.
You should read it. You should.
And Bill, what are you going to call your Mistborn musical?
Les Miserables.
Yeah, there we go. I've heard that joke a few times.
Anyway, what comes to mind for me for you saying like that Kelsier casting a long shadow is it's always the first person who does something who makes a bigger impact than anybody else. Like the poor Joe Schmo who does it second, it's just not as much of an impact as the person who does it first. And Kelsier does a lot of firsts here.
Mm-hmm. Well, and speaking of the person who comes second, he saves Elend in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
And he keeps going, why did I do that?
well, but the thing that's interesting is because Elend ends up becoming the king, and Elend, throughout the rest of the books, is constantly comparing himself to Kelsier. And
Finn compares him to Kelsier a bit too.
Yeah, and that's the next person who's obviously way affected by this scene.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To say nothing of the readers who, at the end of the scene, get hit with the biggest mood whiplash in any literature I've ever read.
Yes.
Oh, man, yeah.
And this scene is the first, many people's, mine specifically, the first Brandon avalanche.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where the legend of Brandon starts. So
yeah, for you, it was the first, because
I know enough people who didn't read Elantris first to know
right.
It has.
This is
impact.
where the legend starts for a lot of people.
Fair enough. Okay, fine.
All right, so the lead up to this. This is all after Kelsier and the crew find out Marsh is dead. Because they show up, they see.
For our audio listeners, Jordan just used air quotes.
I think they could. I think they could hear it. So Kelsier, in response, goes. He destroys the pits. The interesting thing about that is, from his perspective, we find out. Excuse me. That the pits' destruction was always part of his plan. This was going to be something he was going to do. So it wasn't just him flying off the handle. Yeah. That said, the rage is definitely what said, all right, this is the part now. We're doing this.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a gruesome scene, wasn't it? This is right before they find, like, the place that Marsh had been, and they find tons and tons of blood.
Yeah.
Right?
There's can one body have this much blood? And the answer is no. But,
no, it was several bodies. That's why.
It's like they thought it was bad because Marsh died. No, it's so much worse.
So much worse.
Yeah. It's messy. So Kelsier destroys the pits. Lord Ruler orders executions, and everyone else they've gone to ground hiding because they found Marsh. They will break him, and he will tell them everything, and so they're in hiding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're just basically saying, this is it. This is the end of the rebellion. This is the end of the plan. And Vin's actually, wondering, so is the band breaking up? And Breeze's response is, this is a different crew than you're used to. We don't do things because we're told to. We're able to sort of pick and choose.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of part of the not the charm, but what works about it, because it's not just desperate thieves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
We've
And
got
as
more
we've already learned that they're much more trustworthy than the other thieving crews.
right.
But so they don't want to go. There was an offhand comment by Dox. He talks about how they're probably going to break up and leave soon, and they're going to have to at the rate Kelsier's giving away money to scoff families. They're going to run out. If you know anything about people who think they're on death's doorstep, they do tend to start giving away their things. And this is one of the hints of Kelsier's plan.
Right.
I didn't connect that.
You know, it's only on like my fifth read through that I finally noticed these things. So, yeah, so I think that's a little bit, it's an interesting hint. It's a lead up. And they don't want to go because, you know, they're hiding. But Kelsier's like, well, these people are dying basically because of me. And, you know, I'm going to at least do them the honor of watching them. And so they all go out to watch. The only people who stay back are Clubs and Sazed.
Well, before that, you know, there's Breeze sort of notes the significance of what he's done because, you know, yes, Kelsier went in to destroy all this, but Breeze just says, you just destroyed the basis of the entire Final Empire economy. You know, that's the only way that the Lord Ruler keeps all the nobles in Ska in check.
Is the
And you know, and so I just love Breeze says, "You wonderful madman, you wonderful genius," or something like that.
You broke the economy.
And Kelsier's response is, "I'll take both compliments."
I'll take everything. It's great.
And so
Kelsier is like he finally comes to the full admittance of that he is a crazy person when he's dead and he's just stuck in the well of Ascension, but. He's always kind of the back of the head known. There is something wrong with me.
right.
Yeah.
But
he has a lot more time to reflect and not much else to do then. So that's when he can admit it to himself.
Yeah, a couple of months alone with an Eldritch Horror will do that to you. So so they're watching and they see the carts come up and they see that Spook's in one of the carts. And they see Lord Renew, also air quotes. And they think at the time that Marsh broke, and this is how they found out. But it's something that Brandon has pointed out because we know Marsh didn't break. And so what actually happened was it's all related to the Inquisitors following Vin. They followed Vin to Renew Manor, and this is all a trap to lure her out.
Right.
Oh, okay. I kept thinking there was also a connection with the spies and the girls at the balls, but it's been a bit since I read.
No.
This one was I found in it was one of his notes, the chapter.
The annotations.
Annotations. That's the word I'm looking
okay.
for. I reread them for this.
It's been a bit since I've read all of Mistborn, so I'm fuzzy on every little detail.
Well, that's okay because we're about to start.
Jordan's
reading.
are well of knowledge here.
Well, this is so good. All right, so. We're gonna go to where Kelsier's last words to Vin.
Can we get like some Glockenspiel music and story time with Jordan?
Here we go, story time with Jordan.
If we want to add it in post, I'm all for it. All right. So again, just stop me whenever you want. Okay. So this is Kelsier. He's looking down and he's seeing that they're in there. Doxson and Breeze entered the slanted rooftop through a window. Kelsier remained where he was, standing by the roof slip, staring out at the prison carts. "Kel," Ham said warily, "what are you thinking?" "We're still a short distance from the square," he said, "and the Inquisitors aren't riding with the prisoners. They'll come down from the palace like last time. They can't be more than 100 soldiers guarding those people." 100 men are plenty, Cal," Ham said. Kelsier seemed to hear the words. Or didn't seem to hear the words. He took another step forward, up onto the roof's edge. I can stop this. I can save them." Vin stepped up beside him. "Kel, there might not be that many guards with the prisoners, but the Fountain Square is only a few blocks away. It's packed with soldiers, not to mention the Inquisitors." Ham, unexpectedly, didn't back her up. He turned, glancing at Doxson and Breeze. Dox paused, then shrugged. "Are you all crazy?" Vin demanded. Pause. "Yes, clearly. They took on a job to depose the Lord Ruler."
But I love Kel's response here.
Yep. Wait a moment, Breeze said, squinting. I'm no tin eye, but don't some of those prisoners look a bit too well dressed? Kelsier froze. Then he cursed without warning. He jumped off the rooftop, dropping to the streets below. Kel, Vin said. What? Then she paused, looked into the red sunlight, watching the slowly approaching procession of carts. Through tin-enhanced eyes, she thought she recognized someone sitting near the front of the carts. Spook. And just paused. It's like, oh no.
Oh. Well, especially, this is the little, the young man who had a crush on her, who, he
gave her a handkerchief.
A handkerchief, yeah. And even though she wasn't interested in Spook that way, there's a connection. You
get flattered when someone likes you like that.
It's not the awkward kind where it's just like they like you and they're not giving up, and you're just like, oh, come on.
It's creepy, yeah.
It's so much more pure, Spook's version of this.
Mm-hmm. And he's not a jerk about it or anything like you were saying.
Right.
He isn't creepy about it.
So
which
this is now
very welcome.
Skipping a little forward.
Mm-hmm.
He paused, halting in the street, turning in Vin's grasp. He looked into her eyes, disappointed. You don't understand what this is all about, do you, Vin? You never did. I let you stop me once before, on the hillside by the battlefield. Not this time. This time, I can do something. But he shook his arm free. You still have some things to learn about friendship, Vin. I hope someday you realize what they are. Then he took off.
Stop. That line. Because if you've read Secret History, that line becomes so much more poignant. Because Vin and Kelsier's reunion, that in my opinion is one of the most beautiful scenes Brandon has ever written. Is when beautiful and heartbreaking.
Yep.
Because she has learned by that point and understands.
Yeah. And
he still doesn't quite get it.
Yeah, well, because she says you have a lot to learn about love.
About love and the echo of it. And so it's just, she's not only has she learned the lesson that he wanted her to, she's taken it a step beyond.
Yeah, she's advanced past it.
It's just, I love that because she was so broken at the very beginning. She couldn't trust anyone. It reminds me again of the scene where, it was around the end of this book where she looks and she sees everybody laughing and talking. And she also sort of sees herself standing outside the door looking in. But now she's part of it and she recognizes, that she's become a part of this family. And that's one of the lessons that's the lesson that Kel taught her. Which, when you look at Kelsier and just how broken he is, the fact that he's learned that, though, and he's taught her. And she's even been able to take it and go beyond it. It's just, my gosh, Brandon, this relationship between Vin and Kelsier is just so rich and wonderful.
And it's such a good father-daughter relationship. From two people who they don't really share that any familial bonds, but he's way closer to her than he ever was his own brother.
Yep.
Yeah, they get each other to an extent that Marsh couldn't get Kelsier.
Well, and to the point where Kelsier regrets that Mare never got to meet her because he sees the possibility of this family that was never able to come into fruition.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of the line from Shallan. It's sad. It's sad because it could have been this.
Yeah, the regret.
But so Kelsier down to the streets, and he's seeing all the chaos, and he has this thought to himself: too many Ska have died already. He thought, flaring his metals. Hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands. Not today, no more. He dropped a coin and jumped.
Those are poignant lines. I could have sworn I've read lots of different books that have lines that just hit you with that kind of impact, and those are some of those same kind of lines.
Okay, there's a scene in the new Doctor Who, and it's a scene just like this that got me actually hooked on the series, because before it I was just like, I don't get it. And then in The Doctor Dances,
I don't know if I've seen this one. Which Doctor is it?
This is the 9th Doctor, so the first season of New Who.
Okay.
So it's the second half of The Hollow Child, which was the one with Are You My Mummy?
Yes.
But at one point, he looks at Rose and he says, "Not this time, Rose. Today, finally, everybody lives." And it was like the most joyous, the most glorious moment. And suddenly I stopped and just said, "Okay, I get it."
Yeah, with that particular doctor, you have to get a few doctors or a few episodes in.
And that was towards the end of his tenure. But suddenly I stopped and I said, "Okay, I get why people like this show."
Yeah.
And this moment it's a very, very similar feeling of not today. I'm going to stop this. And Kelsier just goes full on Kelsier. He goes Super Saiyan.
Speaking of, it says after, men scream, Kelsier, blah, blah, blah. Go, he told the prisoners, jumping down and landing lightly in the street. He spun and came face to face with a tall figure wearing a brown robe. Kelsier paused, stepping back as the tall form reached up, lowering his hood, revealing a pair of eyes impaled by spikes. The Inquisitor smiled, and Kelsier heard footsteps approaching down a side alleyway. Dozens. Hundreds.
That's right.
It's a trap!
It's a trap!
First off, can we talk about the imagery that Brandon has built here? Because just the Steel Inquisitors are terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
Just the thought of somebody whose eyes are essentially replaced by railroad spikes that have been driven through their head.
I mean, it takes someone having eyes that are different or off or something for you to realize how much of an expression and how much of a person's face matters to you visually until they're blood red or iron spikes or something for you to go, now it just ups the creepy level like a whole ton.
Yeah.
I love this part right here. The Inquisitor pushed himself through the ash-filled air, landing with a thump in front of Kelsier. The creature smiled. First, just the fact he lands with a thump. The Mistborn always land with all this grace.
Soft and quiet.
And soft. But Inquisitors, they aren't worried about grace or anything like that. They're just beasts.
Well, they've also got so much extra metal through them that there's just a weight to them.
Yeah. And then Kelsier has the thought, it's the same man, the Inquisitor from before. Where's the girl? The creature said quietly. Kelsier ignored the question. Why only one of you? He demanded. Because obviously it's a trap. So yeah, why only one of them?
Yeah.
I deserve more.
The creature smile deepened. I won the draw. That's how invincible the Inquisitors feel.
I mean, you think about it, how many have died? You don't know of any dying in the recent future or past because they're just that tough.
Well, that's one of the questions. They had Marsh answer, can they be killed?
Yeah.
That was one of the things they were asking. And Marsh was like, I think they can.
He's like, because they usually die of old age. He's like, but if they can, then there's a possibility.
Well, the other thing is, at this point, we know nothing about hemalurgy.
It's just they all have creepy spikes, and it's creepy and gross.
Yeah, they have creepy spikes. We don't know why. And they have superpowers, and we don't know why.
Yeah, when they do get that chat with Marsh, I reread part of that scene randomly, and he doesn't know how hemalurgy works either. And he's just like, I guess they find all Mistborns. He doesn't realize that it's... No.
Well, because nobody's heard of hemalurgy outside of the Steel Ministry at this point.
That's very well-kept secret. And it's gross.
Then this part, Vin was right, Kelsier thought with frustration. Below, the Inquisitor watched him, trailing with unnatural eyes. I shouldn't have done this. You shouldn't have. Below, a group of soldiers rounded up the ska that he had freed. I should run. Try to lose the Inquisitor. I've done it before. I
immediately regret my decisions.
But he has the thought, I should run. And then it's followed up with, but he couldn't. He wouldn't. Not this time. He had compromised too many times before. Even if it cost him everything else, he had to free those prisoners. And I just love... There's part of Kelsier that we get to later on as well. It's not... Part of it is he is trying to be noble and make the last stand. The other half of it is Kelsier has always wanted to know. can I take this thing
Can I
on?
take it?
Yep.
But the thing is, because
Well,
the Inquisitor is really looking forward to the fight as well. He's smiling and happy about this fight. And it's also another sign that Kelsier is, just as Preservation says, more of ruin than of preservation. He likes the violence.
well, and and what's driving him also is, there's the curiosity of whether he can do it. There's the wanting to save the people, and there's just pure rage at the loss of his brother.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting because when you go back to the roof, Vin is like, okay, I'm going to go down and help Kelsier. And Doxson actually stops her. He's like, no, we don't want a repeat of what happened at the Krennic Shaw. And she's like, well, I can't just do nothing. And then I love this little scene. To her side, Breeze was mumbling to himself, yes, you're afraid. Let's focus on that. Soothe everything else away. Leave. You're terrified. That's an Inquisitor and a Mistborn fighting. You don't want to interfere with that.
You don't want to do that. It's totally the Jedi hand wave, but with...
Well, and Breeze knows, like, he knows exactly which buttons to push, and that's just a big red button. He's like, yeah, I'm hitting that.
Smashing.
I'm willing to bet inside their hearts, no, they don't want to interfere with that.
Nope, that's above their pay grade.
I'm just thinking of, like, all those times playing WoW and you just see two high-level people, like, dueling out in the open as you're, like, level 12. You're just like, I'm just not going to be here. I don't need to be here.
Yeah.
The other thing, I want to take a step back to what I was saying about, Kelsier's rage at losing Marsh, because as much as they don't fully get along, Kelsier has a deep respect for his brother. Like, it's just clear that he cares about his brother and he respects his brother's ideals. He hasn't been able to have the same sort of he hasn't been able to be as idealistic as Marsh was. Marsh always was the more steadfast, to the point where, again, Mistborn's secret history. What does he say when at Marsh's climactic moment? You took the wrong brother, because Marsh is the one who's strong. And so taking that, that icon from Kelsier's life, he's just turning on it and just it's hit his berserk button.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
so Ham comes with his soldiers to help with the fighting, and
I like how Kelsier's kind of surprised, because he's like, that's where Ham went.
Oh,
Because Ham disappeared for a little while, and then suddenly he shows up with the cavalry.
Kelsier smiled, eyeing the annoyed Inquisitor. Just that Kelsier's just he's just a troll at heart. The creature growled quietly. Valette! A voice screamed. Kelsier turned in shock. A well-dressed nobleman was pushing his way through the soldiers towards the center of the fighting. He carried a dueling cane and was protected by two beleaguered bodyguards, but he mostly avoided harm by virtue of neither side being certain of wanting to strike down a man of obvious noble blood. Valette! Ellen Venture yelled again. He turned to one of the soldiers. Who told you to raid House Radu's convoy? Who authorized this? Great, Kelsier thought. Keeping a wary eye on the Inquisitor, the creature regarded Kelsier with a twisted, hateful expression. You just go right on hating me, Kelsier thought. I only have to hang on long enough for Ham to free the prisoners, then I can lead you away. So I do this, because earlier he's like, no, I'm going to make my stand here. And then here, okay, I'll lead him away. He's still waffling. Like, he's going back and forth on it, as you would expect it when you're at this
clearly
precipice.
he doesn't want to.
Yeah,
So.
he doesn't want to die.
The Inquisitor reached out and casually beheaded a fleeing servant. And it's just, I love this Kelsier, because after Kelsier yells no and all this stuff. All right, Kelsier said, striding forward, pulling a pair of vials from his sash. All right, you want to fight me? Come on.
Let's do this.
And that's what Kelsier you pushed me to seek revenge, he thought. Well, you shall have it. Kelsier paused a few feet in front of the Inquisitor, fist clenched. He flared his steel in a massive push. Around him, people were thrown back by their metals as they were hit by the awesome, invisible wave of power. The square, packed with Imperial soldiers, prisoners, and rebels, opened up a small pocket around Kelsier and the Inquisitor. Let's do it, then. I do like he shoves everyone out of the way, and my first thought as a Smash player is Final Destination only.
See, and suddenly I'm hearing the intro to Trogdor.
Yeah. I'm thinking music like that. It's like, let's bring
Miss
do this.
All right. So the opening, because that ended chapter 33. Mm-hmm. The opening of 34 was one of, I just love the prose of this. Just the start of the fight. Mm-hmm. Dead and dying men collapsed to the cobblestones. Ska crowded the roads. Prisoners cried out, calling his name. Heat from a smoky sun burned the streets, and ash fell from the sky.
Great callback.
Just so good. Just
Yeah,
the callback, it's setting the scene.
Mm-hmm. And it's like Sanderson doesn't do much purple prose, if you guys know that term. Mm-hmm. But I mean, when he does do his imagery, it's pretty. Even if you're talking about ash and dying people, it's still.
But it's so simply.
Mm-hmm. It's not going over the top and where people are using all the big words just because they can find them and make that sound like they're smart. But he's very good and concise with his word choice.
I mean, you think about it. You look at that whole sequence. There's not that many adverbs actually used.
Mm-hmm. And it
it's
if you can do it with less adverbs, it sounds better. It's a better product.
Yep. It's the problem with writing action is nothing is slower than the word suddenly.
Because, if you can get away without using adverbs, and sometimes it's hard to find the right verbs, but if you can keep the pacing up, then the fight pace, like we've talked about before, stays up and it's flows better.
Mm-hmm. So when the fight starts, Kelsier, his opening salvo is he throws a person at him and caught him by surprise and actually gets him to start bleeding. Which... He
doesn't just throw a person at him though. He like hammer throws.
Yeah. He throws a soldier who's got a metal chest plate, and everything.
And then pushes himself around and has this like dual orbit and then just really, oh gosh.
Yeah, because then he grabs onto like a group and a single one, and so then he's just like spinning around and throwing stuff at the Inquisitor.
Yeah. I love this line. A line of blood ran down the creature's face across its eye tattoos, but it looked up smiling. It didn't seem the least bit dizzy as it stood. Kelsier landed, cursing quietly to himself. With an incredible burst of speed, the Inquisitor grabbed the empty box-like prison cell by a pair of bars, then ripped the entire thing free of the cartwheels. Bloody hell! The creature spun and hurled the massive iron cage at Kelsier, who stood only a few feet away. There was no time to dodge. A building stood right behind him. If he pushed himself back, he'd be crushed. The cage crashed towards him, and he jumped, using a steel push, to guide his body through the open doorway of the spinning cage. He twisted within the cell, pushing outwards in all directions, holding himself in the middle of the cage's exact center as it smashed into the wall, then bounced free.
Ultimate egg drop.
It's just insane.
Well, first of all, this is where Sanderson is just so good at giving the logical conclusion of things that we've seen but we haven't thought about. Yes, if you went to the center of a cage, pushed in all directions, you would float. And so Kelsier has just said, all right, this cage will go tumbling, but I will be in the center. Kelsier has to be the first person who dodged something by jumping into the thing thrown at him.
Yep.
And then I love when Kelsier, the other thing that's neat, Kelsier's impressed by that much strength.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, it's insane.
Well, and so Kelsier doesn't think he can do it. So either this is a result of the guy maybe having multiple pewter spikes that give him multiple strengths, or he's using some ferrochemical stuff.
Yeah.
And we see a hint of that as well.
The burst of speed.
It's one of the hints that the Inquisitors aren't stealing from just one source.
Because Brandon has been placing hints in this. See, now Brandon was fortunate with this because he actually wrote the entire trilogy at once.
Yeah, and then I think, did he like edit them, or were they all written and edited at the same time?
I don't recall.
Okay.
But
at least he knew a lot of the big stuff so that he could put in hints easier.
Yeah.
And then then Kelsier doesn't just exit the cage. He shoves it and breaks it apart.
Yeah, he unfurls it, kind of, is from what I sort of remember.
It's just one of these things like, oh, Kelsier.
Well, of course, he's still a showman.
It's flashy, yeah, it's showy.
Well, and to that point, when he starts like using like soldiers as anchors, he like casually like is like, sorry.
Sorry, friend. He says it to one of them, and he's like mentally noting, okay, it's not one of Ham's, that's good. But it's one of his.
And then like archers show up to start shooting the soldiers. Kelsier starts burning adium to start being able to head off all the arrows of the pass.
He's been using adium.
Yes.
Yeah,
the whole fight.
That was one of the things I thought was. Well, Amy, you were going to say something.
Oh well, and I just remember that he like spins it like a blade to get the obsidian. They're obsidian tipped so that you can't stop them with elements.
Yeah, I just remember at the very, very beginning of the fight, he recognizes that they've both got a whole lot of adium in it, and that's when you just buckle up because you're like, oh, it's about to go down.
Oh, it's gonna be cool.
Well, and it's a type of fight that neither would get to have that often.
Well, and adium, it's something that burns so quickly that they do not use a lot at a time. And at this point, both of them are just like, all right, here we go.
Let's do it.
And so...
and so I love that Kelsier's not just fighting the Inquisitor. He's also trying to keep the soldiers safe. It's very reminiscent of Kaladin trying to protect Dalinar. So he has the main person he's fighting in Amaram, but he also has the fuse. So more impressive for Kaladin in that regard. This is the better written scene, though, unfortunately. So that, skipping ahead a bit, Renew exited the cart, then stepped to the side, watching as the servants rushed free of the cage. Suddenly, a well-dressed figure burst from the melee, grabbing Renew by the front of his suit. "Where's Valette?" Ellen Venture demanded, his desperate voice carrying to Kelsier's tin-enhanced ears. "Which cage was she in?" "Kid, you're really starting to annoy me," Kelsier thought, pushing himself past the path of soldiers and ran towards the cart. The Inquisitor appeared, leaping out from behind a pile of soldiers. It landed on top of the cage, shaking the entire structure, an obsidian axe grasped in each claw-like hand. The creature met Kelsier's eyes and smiled, then dropped the top of the cage and buried an axe into Renew's back. The Khandra jerked, eyes opening wide. The Inquisitor turned towards Ellen next. Kelsier wasn't certain if the creature recognized the boy. Perhaps the Inquisitor thought Ellen to be a member of Renew's family. Perhaps he didn't care. Kelsier paused for just a moment. The Inquisitor raised his axe to strike. She loves him. Kelsier flared steel within, stoking it, raging it until his chest burned like the ash mounts themselves. He blasted against the soldiers behind him, throwing dozens backwards, and streaked towards the Inquisitor. He crashed into the creature as it began to swing.
Man, the parent in me is like, yep, that's the protective dad coming out right there. And those obsidian axes, I forgot about them, that they had those, and they sound scary.
And he basically Supermans into him.
Yep.
And it's significant because we know Kelsier in his hatred of the nobles. But in this moment, Kelsier's love for Vin finally trumps his hatred of the nobility.
But he calls that out just immediately after.
He's like, "Oh, I just saved a noble.
I just saved a noble. I feel dirty, you know."
It's part of the soup that makes Kelsier. He's like, Kelsier presents himself as he's trying to be the savior of the Ska and all these things. And Brandon has properly, pointed out to people how if things ended slightly differently, Kelsier would be the villain of the story. He's kind of a psychopath and all these things. I think too many people, though, read that and think, oh, that means he's actually that person. And it's no, he is both of these people.
And he chooses to be this one.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it depends on whose point of view you are for if he's a villain or not. Because, I mean, for the average nobleman, he's going to be a villain. But for the average Ska, he's going to be the hero. It just depends on which side of the cause you're looking at.
He's not just a villain. He's the boogeyman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I do think Brandon's right that Kelsier, very much so in the vein of the Dark Knight, You either die the hero or live long enough to become the villain. Had Kelsier survived this ordeal, I think he would have become the villain.
Well, because
he would have gone around killing bunches of nobles, like slaughtering them.
It would have been the French Revolution, and Kelsier would have been the one with the guillotine.
And there's your Les Miserables.
No.
Said that right.
Wrong revolution.
Wrong revolution? Oh.
The Les Miserables is actually about the Schoolboys' Rebellion, which was different.
Oh, it's a different
than
one?
the French Revolution.
I need to catch up on my things. No, you're fine. You're fine. I don't know my source material.
A lot of people.
I was trying to make a joke and it didn't work.
No, it's a very, very common mistake. So.
Yeah, I thought so as well. Okay. Kelsier gripped the Inquisitor by its neck as the two hit the ground. Then he began to squeeze with pewter-enhanced muscles. The Inquisitor reached up, grabbing Kelsier's hands, desperately trying to force them apart. Marsh was right, Kelsier thought, through the chaos. It fears for its life. It can be killed. And I love that realization that if it knows fear, it can be killed.
There's hope, yeah.
And so I just love that line where he suddenly realizes Marsh was right and he can do this.
Yeah.
All right, then where was the next one?
And it doesn't seem like a nice, big, brutal fight unless somebody's strangling somebody. It more often than not in these big fights, somebody's got to try that.
All right, okay. So Renew dropped to the ground with a sigh, axe in his back, as Kelsier tells him to...
He's like they do a nod like it's fine. You're good.
Kelsier, Ham yelled over the crowd. Oh, sorry, you were going to say something?
Well, and I was just going to say, and the others comment on it because they see what happens to Renew, and they're just like, I don't know, that could be fatal, or he could...
I think it's Docs that says that he's like, it may or may not be.
I just don't know enough about Khandra.
They dropped the word Khandra. And
I realized this time that Kelsier says Khandra in his head about him, and I didn't know. I didn't remember that from other times.
Had they not dropped the word Khandra at the very beginning?
We've seen. I think we saw it twice before these scenes.
Like they referred. Yeah,
because Kelsier refers to it, and Straff Venture, I think, refers to Tensoon in his scene.
Well, you see, Elend, and Elend's point of view, and he sees him talking to Tensoon, Straff.
Yeah. So I love.
So I'd forgotten that it had been mentioned, but it's not really explained very well. I don't think.
Well, and intentionally not.
Yeah.
But he's just throwing little hints just to tease people who are paying attention. What's a Khandra? It's not a word.
Khandra, what?
Survivor, a rasping voice said. Kelsier spun. The Inquisitor strode forward, stepping with pewter-lithe power, surrounded by a haze of adium shadows. Survivor of Hathsin, it said. You promised me a fight. Must I kill more Ska? Kelsier flared his metals. I never said we were done. Then he smiled. He was worried. He was pained, but he was also exhilarated. All his life there had been a piece of him that had wished to stand and fight. He had always wanted to see if he could take an Inquisitor.
Now that's interesting that he says all his life, because he hasn't been a Mistborn for all that long. So there's either, two interpretations of that. One, he's just been that brash his whole life, or two, being a Mistborn is kind of a second life for Kelsier.
Like he might just consider that I started a new life after that.
Well, and the way it writes it, I think all his life there had been a piece of him that wished to stand and fight. I think more generally wanted to stand and fight.
Even normal kids would probably look at it and go, man, I wonder what it would be like to be that cool to be able to stand up against it. Yeah, even if you aren't a Mistborn,
But Kelsier's the right kind of crazy to actually test that hypothesis.
To think about it and then actually follow through.
Then Kelsier starts fighting the Inquisitor for real now, where it's just the two of them. The Inquisitor growled and slapped Kelsier across the face, throwing him down with one blow. Kelsier shook his head. What does it take to kill this thing, he thought. He's got to figure that one out. And then, so he starts, he's stronger than I am, Kelsier acknowledged, watching the Inquisitor warily, but strength isn't everything.
Yep, because there have been lots of movies where you see that it's not just the muscle person who can win. There's always some other way you can take him down.
And Brandon has expressed several times he prefers heroes with skill rather than brute strength.
Because, I mean, brute strength is often genetic to a point, and so that makes it sort of unfair in that. So Joe Bob gets really good genes and they can be muscle man, but
it's also
person over here, yeah.
It's also clumsy and doesn't have quite as much finesse.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, there are really strong ones who do have finesse too, but I mean, it's not as common. It's more often that they're clumsy and they just have, Hulk smash. So.
Well, and this is a lesson that's been echoed to Vin a couple times. Kelsier has said it, talked about it's not about just how strong your pushes are, talking about that. And Ham was teaching her, don't sit there and rely on the strength. The strength that, it's more about the skill. And
well, even in a more real world application, I've got a cousin who was a baseball pitcher, and one of the things that he talked about a lot is, the fastball isn't necessarily the only way to go. Location, being able to put it exactly where you want it. That's how you strike somebody out. And
and I just love this because this is the natural extension of everything Brandon has taught us, where Kelsier starts grabbing all these tiny little bits of metal and starts just magnetoing these things all over the place because they're both burning. So each of these things have multiple iridium shadows.
Yep.
And he's just simply trying to overwhelm his senses.
Yep.
I wonder if it's even more effective versus an Inquisitor given how their sight is.
That's very possible. I don't know.
I mean, because they see it as like blue lines, right?
Yeah, they see it
just blue lines. And so like they're...
Doesn't Vin use like dust to fight an Inquisitor at one point? Metallic dust?
Yeah, she throws a handful of, I think, pewter dust.
And so this is sort of the first version of that. It's a bunch of tiny little metal things, all of them casting adium shadows. And what I love is what's when we switch to Vin's perspective as she's watching this.
Yeah.
I underestimated Kelsier, Vin thought. I assumed that he was less skilled than the Mistings because he spread himself too thin, but that wasn't it at all. This is his specialty, pushing and pulling with expert control. And iron and steel are the metals he personally trained me in. Maybe he understood all along.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was actually just going to say, but you did.
Which also sets Zane up as a good foil for Kelsier in the next book, because and we don't learn this except from a word of Brandon. Zane had his spike through his heart, and he was spiked with, I believe it was steel. So he was actually able to push more precisely and more strongly than your average Mistborn. But again, Kelsier, this was his inherent skill.
Yeah.
This is just him. This is what he
chose,
what he did, which is, and if you read the 11th Metal, first he's tried to use all sorts of, he tried more of the blunt force and the emotional, like that was apparently his original strength, and he kind of not cast aside, but just sort of ignored pushing and pulling, and then he was taught, this is what you should focus on. There's a lot more subtlety with this, and suddenly he's just like, and now it's become his strength.
And the other thing that's interesting about the Kelsier, that line, maybe he understood all along, is the fact that Vin had, and for good reason, she thought Kelsier was sort of ad-libbing so much of his plan. And it turns out, no. He is these are all been very intentional things.
Well, yeah. And if at first she even thought that he was kind of pawning her off on the others, having them train him. She was like, why isn't he training me? And she kind of took offense and was a little bit hurt by it. And now she's like, oh no, he was preparing me.
He's letting me work with all of the specialists so I could get as good as possible.
Exactly.
Because it's one thing to be able to do all of the different metals, but it's another thing to master it, and each different person in the crew sort of mastered a different metal.
Right.
Because Kelsier did not master it at all. If you read the 11th Metal, you see Gemmel really discouraging him from using the other metals. He hated him using the emotional ones.
Right.
He's like, it's not. Yeah, he didn't like that at all.
That's how he's like, that's how the old you should think. Like, you're a Mistborn now.
Question.
You're not just a con man, yeah.
Question. Was Gimel spiked? I can't remember.
Yes, he's spiked because the mists would not curl around him.
That's right.
We don't know what type of spike, but we knew he was at least crazy.
But that's also possibly another reason that we don't want Kelsier becoming too strong with emotional allomancy. It's especially Gimel.
Gimel was nuts. I mean, I would love the scene. So Brandon has all but confirmed that Kelsier's final lesson from Gimel was a duel to the death.
Right.
I mean, we already knew from 11th Metal that Gimel had killed previous apprentices.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's assumed that he did that. And so when we see him use like the emotional stuff, he's very blunt force. And he knows he is, but he doesn't have time to really perfect it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Vin has been given that, and she's been using her lux, instinctively for so long.
Mm-hmm.
That she already kind of has the knack, and then Breeze helps her.
And then she gets, taught by the master himself. And it just shows how Kelsier really did know the limits of himself and didn't want those things to repeat with Vin.
Mm-hmm. And is it clear if it's 100% intentional, or if it might have been a little bit subconscious that he just knew that so and so is better at it, or that he knew?
I mean, he's known these people for a long time, so I assume he knows that they're the best at what they do.
Right.
Yeah.
He's assembled this team personally.
Yeah.
And I think he'd worked with everyone but Clubs before.
Mm-hmm. And Spook.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just one of these things that it's, again, just the attention to detail Brandon puts in these things, and the attention to detail Kelsier put in these things. That when people talk about how much better Vin is than Kelsier, it's because Kelsier knew what he was doing when he trained her.
Right.
You always want your apprentice to end up better than you.
Yeah.
So they can get that much better.
I love this scene. Kelsier spun and flew amid a maelstrom of metal. Every time something hit the ground, he flicked it back up. The items always flew in straight lines, but he kept moving, pushing himself around, keeping them in the air, periodically shooting them at the Inquisitor. The creature spun, confused. It tried to push itself upward, but Kelsier shot several larger pieces of metal over the creature's head, and it had to push against them, throwing off its jump. An iron bar hit the Inquisitor in the face. It is so hard to hit someone who can see the future.
Especially,
and he finally hits him. It reminds me, for those of you who watch Naruto, there's this character Gaara who's never been hit, and finally, when someone finally hits him because they're moving so fast that he can't react, it's this big moment because he had never been struck in his life. And it's just that line, it hit him in the face. It's such a big deal. Let's see. The creature stumbled, bloodied, blood marring the tattoos of its face. A steel helmet struck it in the side, tossing it backwards. Kelsier began to shoot pieces of metal quickly, feeling his rage and anger mount. "Were you the one who killed Marsh?" he yelled, not bothering to listen for an answer. "Were you there when I was condemned years ago?" The Inquisitor raised a warding hand, pushing away the next swarm of metal. It limped backwards, putting its back against an overturned wooden cart. Kelsier heard the creature growl, and a sudden push of strength washed through the crowd, toppling soldiers, causing Kelsier's metal to shoot away. Kelsier let them go. He dashed forward, rushing the disoriented Inquisitor, scooping up a loose cobblestone. The creature turned towards him, and Kelsier yelled, swinging the cobblestone, his strength fueled almost more by rage than by pewter.
Yeah.
I just realized something.
Go ahead.
He worked, like, that happened using the same concept of the some of the Haze Killer rounds from Era 2. The ceramic ones, the ones that are supposed to be used against coin shots, because the way that bullet works, if you recall, they push, and the bullet itself is ceramic, so it's not pushable, and it just pushes away a shell. and then the round itself hits them. And that's kind of what Kelsier did, is he let him push all the metal stuff away, and then he just kept coming forward with something that
non-metallic.
and just plowed him.
And I love this. That it's been up until this point this incredibly skilled fight. How does Kelsier get him? He hits him with a rock
Multiple times.
There was a big rock.
Yeah.
Wow, we're pulling Batman the Animated Series references. Nicely done.
Well, I mean, look at the Mistcloaks. Come on. Anyway, he hit the Inquisitor square in the eyes. The creature head snapped back, smacking against the bottom of the overturned cart. Kelsier struck again, yelling repeatedly, smashing his cobblestone into the creature's face. The Inquisitor howled in pain, reaching claw-like hands for Kelsier, moving as if to jump forward. Then it suddenly jerked to its stop. Its head stuck against the cart's wood.
The one real big disadvantage to having spikes for eyes.
Coming out the back of your... At least that size of spikes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Kelsier smiled as the creature screamed in rage. He's of ruin. Struggling to pull its head free from the wood. Kelsier turned to the side, seeking an item he had seen on the ground a few moments before. He kicked over a corpse, snatching the obsidian axe off the ground, its rough, chipped blade glittering in the red sunlight. "I'm glad you talked me into this," he said quietly. Then he swung with a two-handed blow, slamming the axe head through the Inquisitor's neck into the wood behind. The Inquisitor's body slumped to the cobblestones. The head remained where it was, staring out with its eerie, tattooed, unnatural gaze, pinned to the wood by its own spikes.
Gruesome, but my gosh, Brandon, that was amazing.
That is so Mortal Kombat fatality type stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I just love... I'm glad you talked me into this.
This is great.
Just Kelsier has to get the pre-mortem one-liner in.
Yep.
Oh, it's so good. It's just...
That
It's
moment
so
of triumph.
satisfying. And so I want to point out that he says that the unnatural gaze, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7... No, six.
What's
Six
he counting?
paragraphs. That's
Okay.
6 paragraphs that they get to enjoy. That he just killed an Inquisitor. Everyone's surviving
Yeah.
past it.
They're all cheering and everything, and
They're chanting, and I just love this line from Kelsier, showing that he really does, like, he believes in the ska.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't have to go the way I assumed, Kelsier thought triumphantly. Maybe I don't have to. Then it hit. Like a cloud moving before the sun, like a sudden storm on a quiet night, like a pair of fingers snuffing a candle. An oppressive hand stifled the budding ska emotions. The people cringed, their cries died out. The fire Kelsier had built within them was too new. So close, he thought. Up ahead, a single black carriage crested the hill and began to move down from the fountain square. The Lord Ruler had arrived. Captain Buzzkill just can't even give them one page of celebrating.
Yep.
And this is what makes Captain Buzzkill such a buzzkill, is it is so mood whiplash. Not one page of celebration, and you're like, oh, we're just dealing with this right now. We're no
going
stopping,
for it.
huh?
just go,
Well, because your personal response is, yeah, what?
Oh, the final boss is here already.
I wasn't
I
ready
thought
for
we'd get to
this.
go to a save state.
Exactly.
This.
Don't I get a save point?
I want a save point. Give me a save point.
No save points, apparently. And I love when he does finally step out and Vin, because we switched to Vin's perspective, and she sees the Lord Ruler. She's struck at just how ordinary he looks.
Right.
It's very, very. I thought he'd be taller, type of thing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean he's young. He looks younger than Kelsier. He's just a tall, skinny guy.
Yep.
Yeah. But this struck me. So Kelsier wants to start a religion. We know that's his secret plan. And you're like, why would anyone believe that Kelsier is a god? We knew him. But notice what his friends think when he's going through. So Doxson says, "This is it, Vin. This is what he's been waiting for. A chance to face the Lord Ruler. A chance to prove those legends of his." Dox believes.
Oh, Dox is absolutely.
Yeah. And she's like, but the 11th medal, did he bring it? He must have. And Dox knows him better than anyone. And should have more reason than anyone not to believe that Kelsier can do this, but he believes.
Mm-hmm.
And so when his closest friends believe that he can do this, it's no wonder that we believe that Kelsier is going to find a way to beat the Lord Ruler.
Yep.
And so it's just, Kelsier always said that the Lord Ruler was his task, Vin thought. He let the rest of us work on the nobility, the garrison, the ministry, but this, Kelsier always planned to do this himself. And then, I'm so much stronger than you, the rings proclaimed. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I wear metal. And
well, it's also harder to push, but...
Yep. But no, it's interesting. Like, he keeps pointing out the rings.
Yep.
Wanting to remind us. And then we go through, he casually gets stabbed by a couple spears.
He points it out with a plausible explanation.
Yes.
And so we ignore it because it's already been explained.
Yeah.
And then two random ska try and stab him, and they do, and he just keeps walking.
There's nothing more disheartening when you impale someone and they just don't even notice. After you went to all that effort. It's just not even notice. And that Lord Ruler continued forward, 2 spears sticking as if unnoticed from his body. Kelsier stood waiting. He looked ragged in his ripped ska clothing, yet he was proud. He didn't bend or bow beneath the weight of the Lord Ruler's soothing. The Lord Ruler stepped a few feet away, one of the spears nearly touching Kelsier's chest. Black ash fell lightly around the 2 men, bits of it curling, blowing in the faint wind. The square fell horribly silent. Even the Inquisitor stopped his gruesome work. Vin leaned forward, clinging precariously to the rough brickwork. Do something, Kelsier. Use the metal. Meanwhile, if you've read Secret History, he's desperately using the 11th metal, thinking, "What? Can't use this? What's this? This is nothing.
Doesn't do anything."
And it's like, Kelsier got bad news. You were set up. You were set up. The Lord Ruler glanced at the Inquisitor that Kelsier had killed. Those are very hard to replace. I just love that he does that. Even from a distance, she could see Kelsier smile. Because he just has to keep smiling and piss people off.
Yep.
I killed you once, the Lord Ruler said, turning back to Kelsier. You tried, Kelsier replied, his voice loud and firm, carrying to the square. But you can't kill me, Lord Tyrant. I represent that thing you've never been able to kill. No matter how hard you try, I am hope. And again, you cut to the Secret History, and inside he is a ball of panic.
Yep.
But he keeps smiling anyway.
Yep.
Because he's the showman. So
and he knows for this to work,
he has to stay strong.
Yep. Well, and he knows exactly what's about to happen too.
Yeah. Because 11th metal did nothing, so
he's that option.
He's at the final plan.
And then just this whole... The Lord Ruler snorted in disdain. He raised a casual arm, then backhanded Kelsier with a blow so powerful that Vin could hear the crack resound through the square. Kelsier lurched and spun, spraying blood as he fell.
And again, every time I've read that, it's just been like wait, what? And you have to stop and go back. You're like, it just happened so suddenly.
For those of you in the video, this is all that separates Kelsier killing an Inquisitor and then getting backhanded by the Lord Ruler. One page. Okay, 2 pages, double-sided, but
But still, that's fast.
Yeah.
It just reminds me of like in Serenity, the movie, how fast that goes.
Oh yeah, we won't.
Oh, I know. I didn't want to open that can of worms, but that's the only thing I can compare for the quick transition.
Yeah.
So Vin, obviously is horrified, and so she goes to the body, not even thinking about anything. Kelsier, no, Vin said, tears streaming down her face. She prodded his body, feeling for a pulse. There was none. You said you couldn't be killed. What of your plans? What of the 11th metal? What of me? She believed too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
She didn't want to admit it, but she did.
And it's just one of these things that's what Kelsier inspires in people. And this scene is even more heart-wrenching in Secret History when Kelsier like senses her and realizes
She's
I've
right there.
abandoned. And it's just
Well, because again, everyone leaves her.
Yep. He didn't move. Vin had trouble seeing through the tears. It's impossible. He always said we aren't invincible. But that meant me, not him, not Kelsier. He was invincible. He should have been.
Yep.
Yep, but
Just hits so hard.
it always makes me think of children and parents and how kids think that parents can do anything before a certain point, and then you sort of go, yeah, my parents are humans and they're whatever else. But I mean, she hasn't had a good parent figure, and now she has Kelsier, and now he's gone, and he was supposed to be invincible. But
she's perfectly echoing the thoughts of the readers at that point.
Like, but you can't.
Because for me, I thought Kelsier was the main character. I know we were focusing more on Vin, but Kelsier's the one driving the plot. He's the main character.
And then, guy.
Like that,
he's gone.
Gone.
Yeah.
Which makes me very nervous going forward in every stupid Brandon book from here on out.
And that's why he did it.
Yep. Time to go, kid, Ham said, paused, looking at Kelsier, assuring for himself that the crew leader was dead. Then he towed her away. Vin continued to struggle weakly, but she was growing numb. In the back of her mind, she heard Reen's voice. See, I told you he would leave you. I warned you. I promised you.
Yep.
The end of part 4. So, this scene is such an emotional roller coaster.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's such a whiplash, and it's so powerful. Why is it so powerful? It's not so It's like, the scene isn't amazing because it's the most power we've ever seen Brandon write into a scene. I mean, heck, Dalinar and Yesna in Oathbringer, show us way more power. Susebron at the end of Warbreaker, the Bands of Mourning in Era 2, and then to say nothing of the things Vin and Ellen do at the end of this trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So Kelsier gets far outpaced by all these people really quick. So it's not because of the power. It's not because this was the most clever we've ever seen anyone in a fight scene. I'd give that probably to Vasher's breath gambit in Warbreaker, or Shai's preparations for escape.
I mean, because when she goes and she has it all prepped, it's just like boom, 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 boom. It just it flows so perfectly.
So it's not because it's the most clever. Is it because it's the most skillful fight we've ever seen? I think barely. It's not. But Kaladin versus Amaram and the Fused is a level above versus an Inquisitor and a bunch of soldiers.
Yeah.
So it's not because this is the best ever. It combines all those things in a very delicious way. But it's not because these things were the best ever. I think it's because this scene, it shows a lot of other people, but more specifically Kelsier. It expresses every bit of facet of his character in one fight scene.
Yep.
So, I mean, throughout the Final Empire, we had the mystery of Kelsier. Who is he? He is a man of mystery. Is he really the savior of the Ska, or is he a con man? Is he a glory hound, just seeking, that everyone's going to remember my name? Is he just this horrible, classist person who's also a psychopath who wants his revenge for all the things done to him and the people he loved? And in this fight, we see all of it. All 4 bits of him.
Yep.
We see the con man. We see the fact that he's sitting here doing a rope-a-dope on the Inquisitor and faking his way, and trying to, figure out as he's going along how he's going to do it. We see the psychopath as well. I mean, heck, the number of times we see his rage where he's just yelling at them, were you the one who killed Marsh, and all that stuff. This fight is very personal.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I mean, he asked him, were you there when I was condemned? It's a very personal thing. And in those moments, he is that man who crawled out of the pits. That was the fuel to his fire originally. We see the Glory Hound. He wants the fight. He has to know. And look, when the crowd started screaming his name. Like, it does fuel him some. He feeds on a crowd. But the scene from the perspective of secret history, it shows also that he really did hope the 11th metal will work and he wouldn't have to die. Like, so he did kind of want the glory. It was a thin hope. He didn't think it would work, but he did prefer that version of the plan.
Yeah.
Well, of course.
But we also see he is the survivor of the ska, or savior of the ska. He is the survivor. Anyway, he dives in to save Spook, and he does not abandon his friends. Like,
Right.
that's who he is. He faces everything down with deep determination. He knows that he has a plan set for when he's gone. You see through his internal thoughts, he really does think that highly of the ska and their potential. And I just think it's interesting because this is the side. I don't think this side of Kelsier did exist when he came out of the pits.
Right.
I think in many ways the whole story of Mistborn with Vin, she was worried about becoming the mask that she's been putting on of this, this girl who goes to courts and things. And Kelsier been putting on this mask, and I think he put it on so much he did become this guy. Because you couldn't go around seeing all the suffering the ska were going through without it affecting him.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just love all these things just meshed together so well to show his character that he is incredibly complicated, but he is a better man at the end of this book than he started.
Yes, absolutely.
He's very multifaceted and he has depth.
Yeah. And it's what makes the fact that he's still around very exciting, because by the end of Secret History, he's also a very different man.
Oh,
Very true.
And he is growing. He still can't leave well enough alone. That's a part of Kelsier that I don't know will ever go away. And why, by the end of the Cosmere, Kelsier could be a big bad still. Because he just can't leave well enough alone.
Oh, man.
But this scene is just, it's amazing. It's glorious, and I love it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, absolutely. Like,
Yeah,
I don't really have much to add to that.
Bravo.
Yep.
Bravo, Jordan.
No, golf claps are appropriate in almost every situation. All right. So, yeah, that's my favorite scene.
Yep.
I hope we can do a similar one for your guys' favorite scenes.
I'll have to figure out what my favorite scene is. There's too many good scenes.
I'll have to
Luckily,
dig through.
we have time.
I know. We do have time. But not right now.
Yep.
No.
Yeah, not
Today
right now.
is
We're
not
actually
that day.
no, we're starting to run out of time, so we should probably
Yes.
Yeah.
move on to
The giveaway.
Da-da-da.
dun, 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 dun.
All right, where did I put that? Oh, here we go. Okay. Again, this is really weird being the one in charge of this. All right, so we're giving away two things. It's a twofer. Double prizes. We're giving away this Cosmere vinyl decal, complete with instructions on the back, in case you don't know how vinyl works.
It's gold colored.
And this Cosmere lanyard, so that you can go to work and easily identify who amongst your coworkers is a Brandon Sanderson fan. They'll notice.
Who's awesome? Yeah.
Yes.
True.
Spot you.
For the record, I just want to let everyone know there's someone at my workplace, and I haven't figured out who it is, but he has a Bridge 4 license plate. And I haven't figured out who they are in a year.
But
you
he
can leave a
will.
note and say like, "We need to talk because you're cool."
I thought I found him because there was also someone who had a backpack with all the allomantic symbols on it, and I'm like, "Aha! I found you." He wasn't the guy.
Oh.
He doesn't know who it is either.
But you found one other fan. So there you
I
go.
know, right? I don't know. Maybe I should just stalk his car. That seems like a good idea. All right, how many people entered?
19.
Amy? 19. Okay. I'm going to hit the random number button, and it's going to generate a random number between 1 and 19.
I did my
The
drum
number
roll too
is-
early.
Okay, stop. Oh, dang it. Oh, it's too early. Okay. An unholy number, number 9.
Michael Campbell.
Da 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 da. You win.
Da, 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 ding, ding.
Item get. Anyway, good work, Michael.
So we will contact you and get your
stuff
information and get it shipped to you. So thanks for listening, and thanks for entering.
Yeah.
Yep. And of course, as always, we want to thank the Brandon Sanderson store for giving us all these goodies. We have a lot more really cool goodies like that, but something way cooler is still in the bag.
Yeah, there is.
All right.
Super cool.
Let's see.
Email?
Yeah, email. It's time, everyone. We, as you can tell by this episode, we're now branching out. We're not discussing single books anymore. Although I'm sure at some point we'll get to the 11th Metal and the Pits of Altania, I think it is.
Elemental Jack. Just Elemental Jack.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, but we're not doing that. So if you have things that you think we should discuss, feel free to email them. You can always give us feedback as well, and do so by sending it to cosmerestudies@gmail.com. We might even use... We're probably going to start using emails as bases for episodes here pretty soon.
We have some ideas too, but we don't mind more.
Oh, no. The more the merrier, because, look, it's intimidating to come up with episodes all the time. And so
yes.
crowdsourcing, it's really nice. Plus, hey,
Then we can talk about what you want.
I know,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
But everyone, of course, wanted this one. This is one everyone wanted, I'm sure. I seem to recall at least 9 emails saying we should do this.
Jordan's been wanting to do this one since before episid 1. So
basically, this is like the third time I've done this episode. It's just the first time we've done it with an audience.
Fair enough.
Yeah. All right. So we also have our personal projects aside from this. Again, this is so weird. I don't like this. Bill,
welcome to my world.
Bill, what do you do? What's your side project?
So I am generally doing board game reviews over at the Innkeeper's Table. You can go there at innkeeperstable.com. I've got a bunch posted already. I've actually got a game that I am really, really excited to review once I'm able to actually see properly and play it. So keep an eye out for that sometime soon. It's
you can't just tease it. Come on.
Jordan, I don't know if he loves or hates or both the title. The title is Hedgelord. So it's basically the concept. It's a handmade wooden game, made by a guy in Alabama, and I'm excited. My brother actually had a hand in making this copy specifically. He just a few little details, and I'm really excited to review it. So keep an eye out for that sometime soon, and you can also check out. I put some just random posts about board games and stuff over at the Innkeeper's Table social media sites. You can check out Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. All of those are at Innkeeper's Table.
Yeah, that I'm looking forward to Hedgelord. Let it be known that a clever name can sway me very quickly. Amy, what do you do?
I do internet stuff. It's cool. So I'm on Facebook on Coincidence Cosplay and Props. My Twitter is at CoincidenceCosp because my name is too long. And then I put a pause so it's easier to tell where the name ends. My Instagram is at coincidence_cosplay because I can't plan ahead and have the same name for all three. So I've been mostly working on a Secret Santa project, which I can't really put up pictures for in case my person sees it. So I'm hoping to finish it this week so then I can actually do other things.
It's pretty cool.
It's super cool.
It's very cool.
And I'm going to be so glad when it's done because I hate all the little doodads on it and I hate details. But otherwise, I have a Hera from Lore Olympus, the webtoon. And so I'm going to hopefully have a finished version of that after I get the other thing done. And I got acrylic patterns for all the different kinds of dice, aside from a D6, because that's just a square. So hopefully, fingers crossed, by next year I will have made a prototype, at least, of all the different kinds of dice. So that's going to be crazy. Anyway, so that's kind of what I've been doing, that and wrangling children, my norm. So,
Cool.
Yeah. And then myself, you can always find me at twitch.tv/splicestream. we just finished up the Professional Amiibo League Season 2 tournament. It's the biggest tournament in Amiibo history as far as prize pool goes. We gave away $300 in prize money. Over $400 if you include the Amiibo that we gave away. So congrats to Sci-Fi, who won that, spelled CYFI, with his Bowser Tough Claw. If you're interested in Amiibo tournaments, we're about to start up Slap Season 7, the Smash League of Amiibo pairs. Items are on. It's all the wacky levels. Spirits are on. It's insanity, and it's glorious. And I love it.
Cool.
Should we...
Yes.
So, and then, of course,
video thing.
That's the other thing, is all three of us also have done something kind of special. We were reached out to by Crafty Games. If you're not familiar with Crafty, they're the ones who are in charge of Brandon's Mistborn tabletop stuff. So the Mistborn Adventure game, which is a tabletop RPG system that you can play, and then also the game Mistborn House War. And they're getting ready to do a really cool Kickstarter project.
Should I show mine? I have it.
Yes.
Okay.
So
tell me if I'm in the right spot.
it should be launching soon.
Yes.
But basically we did a video promoting
There
their upcoming Kickstarter for actual metal dice. They're doing one for each of the elementic metals. There's 20 in all.
Yes.
Because they, in addition to the base 16, they also do adium, maladium, lerasium, and harmonium.
Yeah, harmonium too.
And harmonium is all sorts of pretty. So
And
keep an eye.
it's really hard for them to get those medals, as far as I understand.
Yeah, so keep an eye out on Kickstarter for that. It should be under Crafty Games Mistborn Metallic Dice.
Yeah, we think it's coming out this week.
Yeah, it should be launching this week. So keep an eye out really soon and
if I can just show off here for the audio listeners, the dice are made out of metal. I have the Electrum dice, which has got a gold tint to it. The sixes are always the allomantic symbol, and the pushing metals have the numbers pushed in, and the pulling metals have the numbers pulled out.
Vice versa.
Or is it vice versa? So
Pushing
is pushed
out.
out.
Pulling
is
is
pulled in, right?
Yeah.
I thought all
Mine
of
is
them was
out.
a pushing
Either
metal.
way, they go in and out, and it's cool. So depending on which one it is, it's pretty.
Yeah.
And they're very solid.
Yeah.
Yes, they're
it
heavy die.
explains this on the Kickstarter. Now, just to warn you, it is a pretty high price point, but these are like really high quality. This isn't like cheap
They're very nice.
stuff.
Yeah,
So
that's one thing I will say about Crafty Games is they do high quality on their games. They don't cut corners.
yeah. And if you want to see our full reaction video to them, where I think it'll be featured on their Kickstarter page. So
that'll be cool.
anyway,
Yeah. No, it's awesome, and that was fun, and we want to thank Crafty Games for including us in there.
Thank you.
absolutely.
Awesome, thanks, because now I got to have an Electrum dice.
I
All
think I'm going to end up
You're gonna buy them.
getting it. Yeah, I'm going to buy it.
I keep
Gotta
toying
do
with
it.
the idea, but I haven't done it. I haven't decided yet. So we'll see.
Also, for those of you who just want to support the show, maybe you can't do the patron. If you can, that'd be awesome. We love patrons. But if you can just leave a review on either Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, a 5-star review really helps us, especially if you leave just a little blurb at the end. It helps gets us. So if you want to help the podcast grow, spread it to more people. Best way to do it.
Words help.
Thank you.
Definitely. And I want to thank Michael, who recently did a 5-star review for us.
Awesome.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So, any final thoughts on this scene from you guys?
Oh gosh. It's just
It's
it
a
is
crazy
a roller
scene, and I'd
coaster.
forgotten how good Mistborn was because it's been so long since I've read it, since we've been reading all the other books. So I was like trying to find the scene, and I would catch myself going, "No, I'm supposed to find that particular scene. I can't just stop and read this." So yeah, Mistborn, awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
If the more Kelsier, Brandon, if you could just, if we could just get my dream scenario of Shardblade in one hand, Nightblood in the other, with awakened Mistcloak, and maybe a
boy.
bird on his shoulder. I mean, he's basically a pirate. He's got one spike through, so
No, that's Hoyd. That's where we're going to see Hoyd.
No, this definitely should be Kelsier. Anyway, I just mostly want to hear conversations between Kelsier and Nightblood, and I think it'd be hilarious.
Oh gosh, no.
Nightblood's who you want to have talk to like anybody. It's just fun when he talks
It's
to
true.
him.
In all honesty, if I had to pick my Nightblood conversation, Nightblood and Wayne, I think, would be the most fun.
Horrifying eldritch puppy.
But no. In addition to the live episodes, the show's always on twitch.tv/Inkeeper every 2 weeks on Monday nights. We did have
Innkeeper's Table.
Innkeeper's Table.
What did I say?
You said just Innkeeper.
Sorry, Innkeeper's Stable. And every 2 weeks, so because we did delay, we are just moving our timeline up a week. So the next episode will be in 2 weeks, as you know.
So after Turkey Day.
Yeah, so after Thanksgiving, for those of you who are stateside.
American, yep.
But yeah, you can always find our videos on YouTube or the audio versions on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere else that really carries podcasts. Just look up Cosmere Studies. You're going to find us. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the profile @Cosmere Studies. For our next episode, we are planning actually on letting Amy take the reins if Amy wants to preview it.
Okay, so I don't have all the details figured out yet because we just kind of decided that I was going to run the next one. But the rough idea that I'm going with so far is like Sanderson's evolution of romance. And I'm not, of all the different, like how he handles romance, couples, whatever. I'll figure out the details, but we're going to go that way. I should have saved it for Valentine's Day, but we're just going to go for it. So yeah.
Let's go for it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right, so yeah, in 2 weeks, join us for that conversation. It's going to get completely just lovey-dovey and disgusting, and we're going to love it. It's going to be mushy as all get out, so bring your s'mores. Anyway, we'll record that in 2 weeks on, I forgot to change the
December
date.
2nd, I believe.
Yes, December 2nd is when we'll stream this next. At 7:30 p.m. Pacific, 10:30 Eastern on twitch.tv/InkeeperStable. In the meantime, on behalf of Amy, Bill, and myself, thank you all for listening, and remember, there's always another secret.